Hey there, I'm David Fremont, author and illustrator of the book series Carlton Crumple Creature Catcher. The first book is Catch the Munchies. The second book is The Tater Invaders. And I'm here to talk about creating these books. So, welcome. Well, I guess I got my start when I was a little kid, making comics and cartoons and watching a lot of cartoons on TV, and always wanting to create stories and comic stories, things that were based on movies I saw and cartoons. I love Saturday morning cartoons. I love to watch Bugs Bunny. I love to watch Underdog, Popeye, like all of them, like Hanna-Barbera, Sid and Marty Krofft, which were some were cartoons, some were live action. Yeah, Saturday morning was like, every weekend was Christmas, basically. Like, you got up early, the presents were the cartoons that you watched. You can open all your presents and watch all these cartoons. I got very inspired to draw from just watching a lot of cartoons and reading comics. A lot of the comics I liked one of my favorites was the Peanuts, Charles Schultz, Snoopy, Charlie Brown, Woodstock, all those, and all the ones in the comics, all the ones in the paper, all the comics, in the newspaper. Figments, Wizard of Id, Beetle Bailey. What else did I love? God, I feel like I loved all of them. I wanted to make my own comic strips, so I'd practice doing that. Sometimes I would trace the comics, and sometimes I would just make up my own silly little comic strips. But it wasn't until I went over to my cousin Steve's house, who drew this amazing comic that was based on the Jaws movie. And it totally blew my mind. I couldn't believe how cool it was. Everything was just perfect. In my mind, it was completely perfect. Like, I couldn't believe, like, wow, this is like the best comic I've ever seen. It's like, and I'd seen comic books and all that kind of stuff, but the fact that like my cousin drew it, of course, made it like so cool. I wanted to make like comics, but like not comic strips, but comic stories, like like in the comic books. Like, what he made was like, basically it was like a movie in squares. So I just kind of became obsessed. I mean, while I was at his house, we'd like drew all these comics, and I was like making all these like space comics. And I think we even had like a comics contest where me and my cousins all drew comics, and we got judged by like my uncle, and we all won a prize. It wasn't like, you're the best. You got the best this, you're the funniest, you're the like most like the best drawer. We all had some kind of like thing that we won a prize for. So that was very inspiring. And so I would just make these, I would continue to make all of these comic stories, usually based on, of course, inspired by Jaws. I wanted to make like a Jaws story, but I'm like, well, I want to make my own story. So I would I would change a little bit, like make it like a giant killer eel, or one of my favorite movies was Poseidon Adventure. So I would make a lot of movies that were pretty much like Poseidon Adventure, but based in like, a ski gondola or like some other situation where everyone's trying to survive or trying to battle like some giant monster. I watched a lot of monster movies when I was a kid on Creature Features, which was on KTVU Channel 2 in the Bay Area, hosted by Bob Wilkins. And those movies were really inspiring because they scared me a lot. And I don't know, for some reason I loved being scared, and I loved the monster movies, and a lot of times they're really cheesy too. But as being a little kid, like you don't really know that that's like, it's not that scary. I mean, to me, it was like horror at Party Beach was like completely frightening to me. So those kind of inspired a lot of my comics and things like that. So when I got older, I didn't really go to college. I moved to San Francisco. Well, before that, I did a comic strip for the newspaper at the junior college. And I won some awards, and so I was still really into drawing like comics and stories, and I ended up in San Francisco working at an art supply store, and I always wanted to like be like, like working, like making comics or drawing or like some kind of like job, and there was this animation studio called Colossal Pictures, and a lot of my artist friends and myself, we all wanted to work there. So that was kind of like the Hollywood of San Francisco. Like in my I was just like, oh, you can make cartoons here. They were making liquid television and all this, all this great stuff. So I wanted to work there. Definitely, that was like my goal. And people would come in and shop for art supplies there, and they were like all looking for stuff that they could go make their cartoons with, because they would like work. I'm like, you work at Colossal Pictures? And a lot of cartoonists would come in, like S. Clay Wilson and Lloyd Dangle, and like, different people would come in looking for art supplies. And I was just like, oh man, I don't want to work here. I want to like do what they're doing, like I want to make cartoons. So me and my roommate and one of my best friends, Eric White, both were like, he was already doing like illustration and stuff, and he kind of got me into doing like freelance illustration. And I wanted to like work, I wanted to work as an illustrator, but I just didn't really know how to do it, because I didn't go to art school. I didn't really understand like what the process was. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you like, and he really kind of guided me and gave me a lot of pointers. And one time he's just like, just Xerox your drawings and like send it out, and just see what happens, and I'm like, really? Just okay. So I just Xeroxed a bunch of like cartoons and creatures and things and like stuck it in an envelope. And he's just like, yeah, just like send that out. So I sent it out, and I did that. And like a couple of weeks later, I got a call from this like film studio, and they're like, yeah, we saw your stuff. You sent us your cartoons, and we think you'd be perfect for this rap video. And I'm like, what? Is this really happening? And there was this rapper called Dale the Funky Homo Sapien, and yeah, so they wanted me to make cartoons and images for this video. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, this is amazing. I can't believe this is happening. And it felt like magic. I was just like, well, like Eric, what did you do, man? Like, I don't understand. Like, you just told me to do this thing, and it worked. I don't like, I'll never forget that, because I was like, just, he's like, it doesn't matter if you didn't go to art school. It didn't matter if you didn't, you don't know, like, whatever, man. We'll just see your stuff, and they'll want to like work with you. And that happened, which was crazy, So I know. So I did cartoons for I did some illustrations for this video, and it got an MTV, and I was like, the first time I was like, oh my God, like I saw my stuff on television and I couldn't believe it. And also I started working as like a freelance illustrator and creating comics for different like magazines and stuff a little bit like after that, Mondo 2000 and things like that. So then I got a job as a cell painter actually at Colossal Pictures. Actually, Eric got the job first, and then I got a job as like painting cells, which they used to do for for animation. Now it's all digital, but we used to, you know, do it actually with paint and brushes. And so I did it. So I did that job for a while, and I actually started getting like design jobs there because I showed my portfolio around, and like, oh, you might want to do like character designs and things like that. So I ended up like doing like stuff for the Disney Channel, for Zoo, like these creatures called Zoogs, and Cartoon Network. Lots of. I ended up doing a web cartoon. I mean a web short for Cartoon Network, and then after Colossal Pictures, I worked at this place called Wild Brain, which is kind of a spin-off of Colossal, and I did a web cartoon called Glue, which was great because it was basically based on one of my comics that they liked, and they were like, yeah, let's just do this as a show. And it was during the .com days, so they you know, they could do a bunch of fun stuff like that. And then, you know, jump forward a little bit, the .com stuff kind of went away. I was doing illustration in comics, rock posters, freelance illustration, editorial illustration during that time. And then the .com stuff kind of crashed out, and that ended. And then we ended up moving to Los Angeles because I knew all the animation was here. So we moved here. I remember pitching a idea to Mary Harrington, Nickelodeon, that was it was called Kung Fu Spy Troll, and it was based on this little troll who wanted to do kung fu, and she really dug it, and she was like, you know, let's try and you know, show this to the studio, and we'll, you know, pitch it and make a pilot. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know how to do that. You know, it was completely like new to me, but she was very supportive, and we ended up pitching it, and yeah, and getting a deal for doing an animated pilot. That was an interesting process. I mean, it didn't end up going to series, but I learned a lot about making a pilot, you know, a cartoon for a network. You know, it was definitely challenging because like everyone's got their opinion, and it was just like, you know, the network is saying this and do this voice, and you know, we ended up getting to use Tom Kenny from SpongeBob to do the main voice, and it was a lot of fun. I was just kind of like, whoa, you know. It didn't end up going to series, unfortunately, and it was around that time, that sort of like disappointing time, when I'm like, wow, I don't even know if like I want to continue doing cartoons, like animated cartoons. It's just such a like up and down like struggle. And then and so I was just kind of like stay-at-home dad with my daughter. And I remember going in, taking her away. I would take her to Barnes and Noble and go into like the bookstore and stuff, and go up to the kids section. And I'm like looking at all these like books, and I'm like, God, man, this is like, there's so many like doing like so many graphic novels for kids now. I mean, this is like the comics, you know, I used to do, and maybe I should just kind of like focus on that for a while. And we're just kind of coming up with all these ideas for comics, and for comic stories, and for books. And one of the ideas I came up with was actually how this came about. Was I got this idea for a book about monsters that eat all the fast food in the world. And I got the idea when I saw this little kid at the beach, and he was eating a Happy Meal. And I just thought, like, what if he threw the you know, one of his French fries into the water, and these sea monsters came up and they ate the French fry, and then they're like, we want more. And so they come up and they, like, you know, they want to eat like all the fast food in the world. And then I didn't really think of Carlton Crumple until like he was kind of like this guy right here. He was kind of an afterthought. This guy right here, you know, because I was like, well, if the monsters are going to eat all the fast food in the world, who's going to be like the, you know, who's going to be the hero, like who's going to try and stop them. So I thought of this little kid. I'm like, well, that would be cool if like there was this nerdy little guy who worked as a fast food worker, you know, and you know, tried to stop them. And so that's kind of where the story came about. And I started doing ideas and sketches in my sketchbook. I make a lot of like drawings and stuff in these black sketchbooks. Sorry, I can't find any drawings in here. You know, I make a lot of drawings, and then you know, kind of just like see how many like characters I can come up with, and until I'm happy with a design of who the main, you know, like who the main guy is or who the main creature is or whatever, you know. So I did a lot of drawings for that, and then I just kind of sketched out the story almost like an animated storyboard, where it was just like the story just kind of rolled out. It's like the monsters, you know, eat the French fry. You know, the kid tosses a French fry into the water, and then the monsters eat it. And let me see if I can find it here. See the French fry gets tossed into the water, and then this little kid, see, he tosses the French fry into the water, and then it sinks down to the water, and the monster's down there. And he sees the French fry, and he wants to eat it. He wakes up after many years of being asleep, and the whole family wakes up, and they're all like, "Let's get some French fries." It's very Muppet inspired. You can see in my upbringing, and like the Cookie Monster and Oscar the Grouch and all that kind of stuff. And then these hippies, they run away from the van because the monster scares them, and it jumps into the van, and it heads down the road looking for more fast food. See that there. And then they go to Chubsy Cheeseburgers, where this kid Carlton Crumple works, and he discovers the monsters when they come in, and he's convinced. I mean, everyone, it's very silly. So it's like everybody thinks they're like, oh, they're just like these big hippies because they're driving a hippie van, and he's just like, no, those are monsters. Those are like, you know, those are definitely like monsters. So he hops on his friend's scooter, Lulu, and they hop on the highway, and they chase after the Munchies, who are eating all the fast food in the world. So that's the setup for the first book. But there's a whole backstory about it that I wrote after, actually. I wrote the original story about why does Carlton become a creature catcher? Well, it's based on my own upbringing, about my older brother scaring me all the time. My older brother, Mark, he was always scaring me with crazy elaborate monster setups. There was this witch called Hester that he would scare me with a lot. He didn't really look like that. So I kind of tease him now about it. He's like, is that supposed to be me? I'm like, no, that's not actually you, but you know, it's just, you're kind of the obligatory older brother that scared the younger brother, which everybody has, I think, that's grown up in a big family, you know. I mean, a lot of people have, they've had that experience. I mean, it's just what older brothers do. There's the witch chasing him, and Creature from the Black Lagoon, that's an underwear monster right there. So he's convinced, basically, from that experience that monsters are real. And he is self-appointed himself to catch all of the monsters in the world. And they do turn out to be real in this very goofy book. It's kind of like, I used to watch this TV show when I was a kid called Night Stalker. And it was on every Friday night, starring Darren McGavin. And it was a really cool show because he would chase all these monsters all the time, like Dracula, and just all kinds of stuff would happen. But it was very funky and very very, it was scary. It was kind of goofy, but it was, I don't know, there was something about it that was convincing. So I liked that show a lot. So this is kind of a Night Stalker for kids with a lot of very silly humor. Definitely young kids like it a lot because of you know, the goofy monsters. You know, I originally pitched it to I originally pitched it to Pixel+Ink via my friend Mary Harrington, who I worked on the pilot with, and she knew somebody who was looking for book ideas with this new company called Pixel+Ink. So she had been talking to this other person that was in the business called Kira Reppin, and Mary called me up after having a conversation with her and said, if you have any ideas. So the first idea that I sent was Catch the Munchies. I had already written like a few books, and so that was like the first one that I sent. And then they called me a few weeks later and they said, "Hey, like, you know, we really like the idea. We, you know, stay tuned, kind of." And I was like, "Wait, do they want to do like a book, you know?" And then a few emails and things happened, and then they called me, and Bethany Buck, who's the editor at Pixel+Ink, said, like, "We really love this book. We want to like do not only a book with you, but we want to do a book series." And I was like, "What?" I'm like, that was like my, you know, that was like the icing on the cake, because I was like, I just want to get, like, you know, that would be great if I got this book published. And now I'm thinking about like, whoa, like this is like more than one adventure. This is like a series, you know, that's like best of all worlds for me. So yeah, so I did a deal with them, and I started thinking of like other ideas for books, what could happen with Carlton Crumple after the Catch the Munchies, because, you know, I kind of in my head like, wow, what would happen if like he got into some other adventures. The second idea, we came up with a lot of other ideas, but the second one we decided on was going to be this one, which was Tater Invaders, which is about these giant potatoes who live underground. And they live in his desert town called Shady Plains. So there's a lot of things that happen in Shady Plains, a lot of weird stuff. You know, it's kind of a mysterious town with a lot of places to go to, a lot of things that are based on my childhood again, which was, you know, we rode our bikes to a lot of you know, places up in the woods. We'd find these rivers, we'd find, like, you know, secret sidewalks. And, you know, I grew up in Northern California in this town called Fremont, which is my last name. And we found like a ghost town sinking in mud. We found this old barge that was floating in this quarry, and we floated this raft out to it, and we would climb on it and play hide and seek in the, you know, the hallways and jump off these towers. I mean, it was just crazy. This was, you know, back in the 70s, so it was a little bit of different time then. We found this waterfall. Gosh, we found like so many places. So I wanted to put a lot of that stuff into the Carlton Crumple Creature Catcher series. He invents a lot of sort of rudimentary things. Like in this one, he's created a dragster that he uses out of parts from his dad's vacuum or lawnmower, his mom's vacuum cleaner, like all kinds of different things. Like he's kind of constructed out of things that they're just not supposed to, and makes these vehicles. He's got like a helmet in this one that he's kind of put together, and it kind of looks like one of the creatures out of the Munchies. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so he makes a lot of gadgets and things like that. we used to build a lot of forts. He has an underground fort in this one, an underground cave. Yeah, so he battles these monsters. In this one, actually, there's these little creatures called the Tater Invaders, but there's also these little robot tater tots, and that's how he starts to discover that there's something going on when he sits down to eat lunch right there, and one of the tater tots is spying on him, and it jumps off the table, and he goes and chases it, and there he goes off, and he's chasing the little tater tot there, and those are called the tot bots. Yeah, so he has quite an adventure with he and Lulu, and he also has these little pets, Poof Poof and Iggy, and Poof Poof and Iggy are in all the books, and they're kind of like they're kind of like Snoopy. They're kind of like Snoopy and Woodstock, which I loved as a kid. I was absolutely obsessed with Snoopy and Woodstock. I think I even had no, I know I did. I had I didn't think I did. I had a Snoopy birthday party when I was in kindergarten, and stuffed animals and shirts and the whole thing. I was just like, I love the Peanuts. So I wanted to create these little characters that were kind of like, they could have these little vignettes outside of the main story that's always kind of going on. I love talking animals. One of the first drawings I ever made when I was a kid was a lion from the Crispy Critters cereal. And I was kind of obsessed with drawing these overlapping like cartoon eyes. And I saw this lion, the lion on the commercial, and I just remember trying to draw this lion like over and over and over again. And like, it's very vivid in my mind of drawing these like egg-shaped eyes that were like overlapping, and it was kind of hard for me to draw like one eye next to the other eye, but I kept trying and trying, and then I finally made these cartoon eyes, and I was just like, yes. So yeah, I love drawing that. I love drawing cartoon animals. Another very inspiring movie was Jungle Book. That was one of the first animated cartoons I had seen on a big screen, and it just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wait, what? Like, this is like, I didn't even know what it was. It was just like this gigantic thing with these cartoon creatures, or just moving objects with animal, I couldn't get my head around what it was. But it blew my mind, and Jungle Book was one of them, and another one was, which is a little bit later, was Robin Hood, which was the Disney version of Robin Hood, and it had animals in it, and it was like a fox and a bear, and like for some reason I drew all these comics after seeing that movie. I got really inspired by it. So I loved drawing. I love drawing animals, talking animals. So Iggy and Poof Poof are definitely inspired by a lot of those movies and comics that I saw. So yeah, so that's Catch the Munchies and Tater Invaders, and the third book is going to be Reptoids from Space. And that's going to be about aliens and how Carlton, Poof Poof and Iggy get captured by aliens. And so Lulu, who is the owner of the pets, she's like, we gotta figure out what happened to Poof Poof and Iggy. So they go on another adventure up into the mountains and try and rescue their pets. So yeah, it's just been like a super amazing experience making these books. I hope they inspire kids to read and to draw, make your own comics. I mean, I hope these can inspire, kids to draw the things that I was inspired by. I mean, that would be like amazing if, kids were inspired to draw from some of the stuff that I created, or it's just it's great to see kids read the books. It's great to talk to them, you know, about what their favorite parts are. One of their favorite parts, which is pretty funny, is the part where uh, most of the time they say, I like when the older brother scares the younger brother. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That wasn't so awesome for me, but it's just funny that they think that that is like the funny part. You know what I mean? This is like, especially if they don't, maybe if they don't have older brother, or maybe if they are an older brother or older sibling. I don't know. It's just funny to me. And don't scare your younger brothers and sisters. Just, you know, be nice. So anyway, I'd like to do a little drawing lesson for if any you know kids want to watch this and see it, or any grown-ups, you know, if you want to learn how to draw a Tater Invader, I'm going to draw a Tater Invader. So stick around for a second, and then I'm going to set it up, and then there you go.
Okay, so let's draw a scene from Carlton Crumple Creature Catcher Book 2, Tater Invaders, which is right here. There's the part of the cover there. So I'm going to draw a little scene like this one where this top bot right there, see the top bot is chasing Iggy, and he zaps him on the butt with a bolt of lightning. So I think that's a fun one to do. So I'll put that over there. And let's start with, I'm going to start with the top bot. Top bot, he's got sort of a body that looks like a pillow, a lumpy pillow. So he's got these bumps on the side. And there's his body. And he's got this jagged little mouth. Like that. Let's see, then on the top of his head, he's got his eyeball, electronic eyeball sprouting up like that. A couple lines there. And then the eyeball part, just a circle with a little pupil there. Then I'm going to draw his arms. He's got these little magnetic arms. There we go. And then his feet. He's going to be running position, so we're going to put his feet up like this. All right, and then just shade it in there. Put a little shadow under him, like that, to show that he's running. All right, and then we're going to make a little lightning bolt popping out of his eye. Couple little dots there for the electricity. And then let's show Iggy. Iggy's not really happy in this scene because he's getting zapped. So we're going to do Iggy's body. His mouth's wide open. He's saying, ouch, my butt. Do his tail. So he's running like that. He got his arm up like there. His other arm, he's got 3 fingers. And then we'll do his legs down here running. Got little iguana legs. is going to be looking back at the top bot, chasing him. We'll do the other side of his mouth right there. And a little tongue in there. Okay. He's got these little scaly things popping out of the back of his head on part of his tail. And then let's make a little bit of action coming off of here. A little bit of fire and flame where he's getting zapped. Put a little shadow under him, like that. And he's going to be saying, "Youch. Help." Oops, move that up a little bit. "Youch, help. My butt." Okay, so there's a little action scene from Carlton Crumple Creature Catcher Book 2, Tater Invaders. Run, Iggy, run!